Tigers and Gators, it's a crossover episode. Locked on Gators, Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on Gators and Locked on LSU crossover episode. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. That beautiful man with the flowing lettuce is Brandon Olsen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts. So thanks so much for making us your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every moment count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Brandon, it's a pleasure to do this with you. We did this last year before LSU Florida, and little did I know that LSU wasn't going to block a soul on the defensive line and cost them a game. Let me start by asking what the vibe check is like right now around Gator Nation coming off the loss to South Florida.
Oh, never been better. Never been better with that one. I mean, it was halftime, and I was seeing tweets of having 9 points against USF at the half is a fireable offense in itself. And I was like, yeah, they'll figure it out. Don't worry. And then they just decided not to.
They didn't figure it out. No, they didn't.
It was incredible. I felt so bad for the defense because the defense, they've given up 1 touchdown in 2 games so far, but and yes, one of them was against Long Island, which, Locked On's SEC squad can probably get together and beat them, but that's beside the point right now. But we're talking
Chris Cordy, sneaky speed, man.
Oh yeah. The tush push there, don't worry about it. We got that one covered easily. We're gonna win in the trenches. But yeah, no, I think that right now it's brutal and it sucks because it's really tough to lose to USF, who I do think is a good USF team, but an SEC team still shouldn't be losing that game. But it's tough to lose that game and then say, all right, well, we'll bounce back, right? We got on the road with LSU, and we've got Georgia in a few weeks, and we've got Miami next week, and we've got Texas. Like there's just so many tough opponents where it's tough to lose to USF.
Georgia, Tennessee, Florida State, it's brutal.
And it's tough to lose to USF and go, oh yeah, we got this. Don't worry about it.
In 2017, we've talked about that a good bit. Brandon, LSU had a similar awful loss to Troy at home. And then a week later went to Gainesville and won that game 17-16. That was a game with the missed PAT. And so there's kind of this feeling like you better expect Florida's best swing this week. With just the makeup of this team, are you expecting that from Florida?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know from a fan vibe perspective, it's brutal, it's bad, it's awful. But at the same time, like this is a team that last year they could have phoned it in early. After week 3, they had 2 ugly blowout losses at home, and they came back and they had a strong season for the most part, or a strong back half of the season. And I had Hayden Hansen on the show this past Wednesday, Florida Gators tight end. And last year he did the thing where he was just like, we can come back, we can bounce back, we could do it. And this year he's doing the same thing. So we can come back, we can bounce back, we could do it. We're ready to go. Like, we've had these conversations, we've had the meetings, we've done all this, we're ready to go. And I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen, but I think it's foolish for the fans. They go, oh yeah, they can't turn it around. Like, we've seen that Florida has a great roster retention rate from last year to this year. They've been through this pretty much exact situation already. I fully expect them to come out firing against LSU, and they hate LSU.
Yeah, this is one of those rivalries that has been naturally bred, right? Especially in the last 2 decades. I mean, the Spurrier era, Florida wrecked LSU. LSU only beats the Gators once when Spurrier was there. But there's been a lot of just natural born hatred built out of really meaningful games and then some off the field stuff as well. So I think the feeling is very mutual here. People get up for this game. It should be a great environment in Tiger Stadium. But, Brandon, a big narrative this week that we've talked about with this game is you look back to last year, and if someone handed you the box score and covered up the score, you'd be like, oh, well, this team just absolutely wrecked the other team. I mean, it was 42 minutes of time of possession. LSU had 25 first downs to 13. They outgained them, outrushed them, outpassed them. Only 3 penalties for LSU to 7 for Florida. I mean, it was overwhelming. And you're like, they lost by 11? Well, it's because Florida had 7 sacks, 11 TFLs. And you're like, oh, yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, that'll kill drives. So How does that matchup look this year, considering, and I know there's some new personnel, but let's start there because I think that's going to be paramount on Saturday night.
I think that it's interesting. Florida doesn't have basically any pass rush production to this point in the season so far. They've only got one sack as a unit, and people can point that out and say, "Oh, well, that means that they've got a bad pass rush." Week 1, you played a triple option team. You're not getting sacks in the triple option team. Week 2, you played a Bryles spread team that's getting the ball out, throwing screens and running the football with quarterback runs. You're not going to get sacks in that game either. So I don't think that that's been a testament of anything. But I do think that this pass rush hasn't done their job when they've been given opportunities to do that. Getting Caleb Banks back will be huge. He had a monster game last year as well. And I think that, toward the end of the year when this Florida Gators pass rush was arguably the best in the nation at the time for that final month and a half of the season, Caleb Banks was a driving factor there. Tyreek Sapp had great games. George Gums had great games, but a lot of it was built around Caleb Banks doing his part and offenses needing to adjust to him and then other people capitalizing on those opportunities. So getting Caleb Banks back and healthy for this game, the reports have been, he's been good to go. We're just, keeping him fresh. We're just not playing him until we do. Could have. USF.
I interviewed Caleb Banks at SEC Media Days, and we did it standing. And it is I'm not a small guy, Brandon. I'm right at 6 foot, 200 pounds. Like, he's a literal giant. I mean, he's a handful for anybody. So can you give us the update on what was going on there that he missed the first two? I saw leg injury, but it was sort of nondescript. What's the update there?
He got off-season foot surgery. Okay. Missed the entire spring. Came back for the beginning of fall camp. Someone stepped on his foot, and so they precautionarily put him in a boot, kept him clean until then. That's really all it was. It wasn't like anything crazy happened.
It was the most Florida step thing. On the big guy's foot. What are you doing?
Yeah, the worst thing that can happen is when people go, "Oh yeah, it's just an ankle." I'm like, you know how bad an ankle is for someone who's 6'5", 330? Like that ankle needs to do a lot. Which again, for Banks, it's a foot, but people talk about the lower leg injuries, and it's like for big dudes. That is not an easy thing to just walk away from.
And just a bit, I want to talk quarterbacks because it's a fascinating matchup. What, from the LSU perspective, is the question or the narrative on the Florida side this week?
I think that a lot of people are anticipating LSU's defense to do damage against Florida because this is the first time that I feel like you guys have had an actually vaunted defense, or at least an actually threatening defense in a while. Yes. And for Florida, we've talked about the offense struggles when you watch the USF game, and USF's throwing 7-8 in the box every single time, and Florida's still not finding success against it. And so I think that, you look at how Blake Baker runs his defense, and they're going to be really aggressive. And I think a lot of Florida Gators fans are worried about that one, with just how, if you don't make them respect you, they're not going to respect you, which is how it should be, by the way. Like, Blake Baker should be as disrespectful as he wants to be against this offense until they make him not be. That's what I'd be as disrespectful as possible and tell you to beat me. We could talk about, oh, well, USF was stacking the box. You should have thrown the ball. DJ Lagway couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last week. And we're talking about, oh, well, make him throw the ball, spread it out. Lunatic behavior.
Yeah, I want to talk about Lagway and Nuss here in just a sec, but I know there might be skepticism about LSU's defense because of a small sample size, Brandon, but the way that I've explained it to people, I mean, literally since the summer at SEC Media Days, is LSU went and spent $20 million on this roster. They didn't go just add bodies in the portal. They went and added proven veteran Power 4 college football players in the portal. You all know about Jack Pyburn. They went and added Patrick Payton, who's got 40 career TFLs at Florida State. AJ Halsey at safety was first team All Big 12 last year. Mansour Delane was the best cornerback for 2 years at Virginia Tech. They've got Harold Perkins back and healthy. Whit Weeks is a preseason All-American. They are legitimate. My quote-unquote bold prediction this year for LSU, when I was asked to give one before the season, was to the point you just made. For the first time since 2017, I think LSU is going to finish top 20 in the country in total defense because they act – bro, when you go spend $20 million, this is what it's supposed to look like. They are all in to win a national championship this year. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they're going undefeated, but I'm saying it is legitimate because that's what they paid for. They went and bought themselves a hell of a roster like Ole Miss and Ohio State did a year ago. And now it's on them to bring it all together and try to get it done and get into the playoff. But of course, I think both these teams on Saturday are only going to go so far as their quarterbacks. Let's step aside real quick, Brandon. When we come back, we'll jump into that, the Lagway and Nussmeier conversation. We'll do it here on a crossover episode of Locked On Gators and Locked On LSU. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, how about Barian Brown from the Tigers? 9 catches for LSU, just under 100 yards, and a 50-yard return as well. When LSU was in desperate need of a spark, Barian Brown came through. The Kentucky transfer, which I'll continue to say was coaching malpractice by the Wildcats for not figuring out how to use him. But Barian Brown moving the game forward for the Tigers this past weekend. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Brandon, let's dive into the quarterback conversation. All off season, DJ Lagway got tons of praise. My contention on Lagway, and so you tell me where I'm right and where I'm wrong. My contention on Lagway, the size, arm strength, physical ability, undeniable. Without the Samford game, his stats completely mirrored Michael Van Buren's freshman season at Mississippi State. I think he has a ton still to prove. And the fact that he didn't practice in spring and throughout fall camp means you have a very rusty DJ Lagway who's still coming into his own. I am very skeptical. The physical ability is undeniable. I'm skeptical on DJ Lagway's ability to come to Baton Rouge and win this game. Where am I right? Where am I wrong?
Well, if you're asking me, I don't think you're wrong in many places. If you're asking Locked On Gators listeners throughout the course of the summer, when I said that DJ Lagway is incredibly physically talented, incredibly physically gifted, but he needs a ton of work and a ton of experience, then you're wrong everywhere, you clown, is the response that you're going to get there. Just want to throw that out there because that's been my take on DJ Lagway is that he is incredibly physically gifted. He is incredibly physically talented. I don't think anybody can deny that arm talent that he has. I think that's been shown by, whether you want to watch the film or the numbers and his deep passing game. Incredible, right? One of the best in the country. I think PFF had him as the best deep passer in the country last year.
Okay.
But the fact that, and I said this leading into the LSU game last year, is that Florida doesn't play sustainable offense with DJ Lagway in there. It's either the run game is working or the deep shot is working with DJ Lagway. But if you don't have the deep shot, you don't have much with Lagway right now. He doesn't take the underneath passes. We did on Tuesday, we spoke about the game with Brooks Austin. Yesterday or Wednesday, I wrote about the game and including all 22 clips of him just missing wide open receivers because his mechanics are falling apart. He needs a lot of work. He's very young, very inexperienced still. And the only way that he's going to get better is with reps. He's already a better passer than Anthony Richardson ever was. But that was the argument with Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida into the draft was, yeah, the film's really bad, but he's really inexperienced. And so when you give him reps, you trust that he'll get better. Lagway was out all of spring. He was out for most of fall camp, or we'll say half of fall camp. He wasn't getting reps. He's not going to get better. What we're watching now is DJ Lagway getting those needed reps. He's got to improve. He does. Like he needs that. But the only way that's going to happen is by playing. He's going to take his lumps. He's going to have his really bad reps. He's going to have the plays where for some reason he insists on throwing fadeaway balls 30 yards downfield. I don't know what the hell the plan was there, but it wasn't a good one. But DJ Lagway, he needs a lot of work. He's modern quarterback, just incredible physical talent, and we're going to hope to develop him, but he hasn't been available, and the best ability is availability, and you're not going to get better. You're not going to get reps if you're not healthy. So you're spot on with it, really. I caught a lot of flack for saying he was great for a freshman last year, but he wasn't great for a football player. And you're not going up into all freshman team.
What's interesting too, is, Billy Napier was an hour 45 minutes down the road from us in Lafayette when he won a lot of games and had fun offenses, but he always had quarterbacks that could run. I'm sure that's probably part of the conversation you all have, but it's like, don't you need that for this offense to work? You have to have that dynamic within this offense, which is very clearly missing with DJ Lagway.
I think that, yes, you need the dual threat, but I feel like when you watch DJ Lagway when he was healthy, he was able to move. He wasn't gashing people for 50-yard runs, but he was able to make a defense pay if they didn't respect him. And basically,
it's almost like they don't do it. Like, is it because of the injuries?
Partially, Billy Napier's always been really weird with how he uses quarterbacks. He with Anthony Richardson, he ran the hell out of him against Utah, and then in his first season, ran the hell out of him with Utah. And then once he got like a little nicked up, they were like, all right, we're done with it. Now you take off when you take off, but we're not calling designed quarterback runs really. It's really inconsistent how you use their quarterback's legs. I think now the way you see mobility with this offense is only DJ Lagway rolling out. Like that's it. That they'll have 1,000 rollouts every game. They're all going to the right side of the field. And DJ Lagway, like that's the only time he really gets moving, unless he takes off running himself, which by the way, he is god awful at that. I don't know what he got sacked twice against Long Island, and both times were him running into the defender. Like it's just it's ridiculous stuff to see. But again, this is a young quarterback that you're watching. He's going to be bad. He's going to have messy football plays.
So Nussmeier is kind of the antithesis of that as a fifth year guy who I would say one of Garrett's real strengths, where he is not the most gifted runner. He can run. I mean, he's about a 4.5 guy. And that's a big complaint people have here is why not take the 8-yard, 6-yard, 10-yard run when it's there for you when teams are playing coverage. And I think he'll need to do that. But he does have great pocket presence and awareness. He avoids a lot of sacks and makes up for a lot of deficiencies, usually on the offensive line, because of his ability to move within the pocket, find the right read, and get rid of the ball quickly. What's so interesting about this matchup, though, specifically, Brandon, is the Gators are the one team that figured it out last year. I mean, you want to know how to beat Garrett Nussmeier? Sack him 7 times, have 11 TFLs, 14 hurries, 20 pressures. Like, that's the way to do it, because we talked about LSU moved up and down the field on Florida last year. They held the ball for 42 minutes and managed 16 points. They would get to the red zone, and they would be unable to convert. And I'm going to tell you, man, that's one of the things that's giving people pause here this week is that exact thing, because this last week against Louisiana Tech, and I know you can always just consider the competition, but LSU had 5 red zone possessions. They scored touchdowns on 2. They kicked field goals on 3. So I'm sorry, they scored touchdowns on 2 and kicked field goals on 3. So if you're at a 40% touchdown conversion rate against Louisiana Tech in the red zone, that's not good. Your numbers you want to score on 90% of your red zone possessions, with 75% of those being touchdowns. Last year, LSU was 94th in the country on red zone touchdowns at 56%. So, I mean, for Garrett Nussmeier and that offensive line, the key this week is stay upright and convert in the red zone. You've heard Brian Kelly talk about it all week. One thing that your listeners need to know is, so Braylon Moore, LSU starting center, another transfer from Virginia Tech, who was a 2-year starter at Tech, and he is like LSU's best offensive lineman, full stop. There's no conversation. He is LSU's best offensive lineman. Sprained his ankle on the first play of the game last week against Tech. Tried to come back, didn't. They held him out. I can tell you he practiced Tuesday. I confirmed he did practice Wednesday as well. Sounds like they're trying to ramp him up to play. I think that's a terrible decision. Just editorializing here. I would DJ Chester started all 13 games at center for LSU a year ago and played against Tech after the first play. So you have an experienced guy. He's not a great center, but you have an experienced guy. And LSU plays Southeastern Louisiana next week before they go to Ole Miss. My preference would be tell Braylon Moore, hey, bro, kick that thing up, get some of that inflammation down, ice it, get treatment, and give yourself 2 weeks and get ready to go against Ole Miss. But they may tape him up, shoot him up, and see if he can give it a go. But that's going to be significant as we talk about this LSU offensive line, Florida defensive front matchup. The guy who's hands on the football every play, who's managing the protections, identifying the mic, all that sort of stuff. If you don't have Braylon Moore, that is a significant loss for LSU in the middle. That's something we all need to keep an eye on. And then Trey'Dez Green, the 6'7" tight end, sprained MCL. They haven't ruled him out as of this very moment, but I do not expect him to play this week or next week. So that's a red zone target that LSU will be down as well. So LSU in the red area is going to be an interesting one to follow. I know the coaching conversation is one that's a big part of this for very different reasons. Let's jump into that as we continue. We'll tell you who we think wins, both Brandon and I, as we continue here. It's a crossover episode of Locked On Gators and Locked On LSU. Love telling you about Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts. And that's where Drip Drop comes in. The Drip Drop is a doctor-developed, scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. Find your go-to flavor. If you've tried a lot of electrolyte powders, nothing tastes as good or works as fast as Drip Drop. It'll become your go-to, especially during long summer days or when you'll be sweating it out at a tailgate. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. One word. That's dripdrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. And we're also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Brandon, I won't ask you for a Florida player that delivered, so let me just stick with LSU. How about a guy like Berrien Brown, who we mentioned before? Brian Kelly said he, quote, balled out against Louisiana Tech. Led LSU, was just shy of 100 receiving yards, had a 50-yard return as well. Berrien Brown delivered in a big way when the pressure was on. No hesitation, no delay. And just like Berrien Brown delivered for the Tigers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, so stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. All right, Brandon, you go first. Billy Napier, hot seat, all that stuff. What do we need to know?
That I don't think, even if he loses this game, I don't think he's going to get fired before the bye. If he were to get fired, I know that that's been a big thing that Florida Gators fans were again calling for his job before the USF game even ended. I do think losing to USF is a fireable offense in year 4. However, it's not going to happen in week 2. Like that was my main thing, was that I understand it, but it's not happening in week 2. They're not going to get rid of him there. I don't know. I think he's more at risk this year, not just because it's year 4, of course, but because now you've got last year, Scott Strickland was the athletic director that hired Billy Napier. The big argument in 2024 was, well, you can't fire Billy Napier because then Scott Strickland is essentially firing himself at the same time.
Yes.
But that was a year ago. Since then, a basketball coach that Scott Strickland hired won a national championship. And then Scott Strickland got a contract extension. So Scott Strickland is safe. So at this point, Scott's no longer tied to Billy Napier. So, and the buyout dropped from $27 million to, it's going to be about $19 million this year if it happens, which is still a pretty big number, but it's significantly lower at that point. You're still going to pay him 85% of his contract value whenever you get rid of him, whether that's next year or the following year. It's still 85% of that total contract value, which at this point, you're at about, even if you fire him right now, you're paying 92% of his total contract. Like it's all still a lot of money that you're giving up, but if it's inevitable, it's inevitable. Which I do feel at this point, it feels inevitable.
Especially with the schedule.
Yeah. Like it's just, again, like last year when they started off the schedule, they started off the year, 1-2, and then 2-3 after the loss to Tennessee. It was like, okay, well, if that was looked at as the easier part of your schedule and you weren't winning games, really tough to look at this backstretch. This time, there is no easier part of the schedule. It's like that part's done already and you're 1-1. And then you've just got hell for the rest of the way. That's really all it is. And so I don't know how you bounce back from it. But, and look, I'm in a very tough spot because I don't think Billy's the guy. I said that last year, that I think that once you realize he's not the guy that's going to win you a national championship, you can cut bait and feel fine with it. I think this is Florida. I think it's fair to have those expectations, which I know people do disagree with because it's been Spurrier and Meyer and everything else has been not awesome.
But for 35 years, this is the standard, exactly. Regardless of what happened the previous 60 years. Like this is the standard at Florida. You have to go win.
Yep. And so I think that if you have a coach that you say, hey, he's not going to win us a national championship, I think that's when you cut bait. And that was my reasoning for wanting Billy fired last year, was that I think last year he proved he's not going to be the guy to go win a national championship. So I think the big difference is that I want to win a national championship and that the administration are spineless losers. And I think that's where we really disagree on some things about this. But I'm also torn because like I want Florida to win every single game. I don't care who the coach is. I want my team to win. And so I think that it's a matter of when, not if. I will say this. There's not a single game that I'm looking at and I go, oh, Florida can't win that game. After what we saw last year, we saw how they can show up. I think this roster is better than last year. So there's not a single game I'm looking at and saying that they can't do it. Is it likely? No, but there's not a game I'm looking at and saying it can't happen.
The hot seat talk for Brian Kelly is gone. Beat Clemson and that happens. Okay, give me a key matchup, a key to the game on Saturday in Tiger Stadium. Who wins?
DJ Lagway and himself. Just honestly, that's really it. I just look at the film and there were receivers open against USF, and I know it was USF, not LSU, but like there's receivers open, and DJ Lagway is just missing everything because his mechanics just fell apart. And that happens when you don't throw a football consistently for almost a year. Is that your mechanics are going to fall apart. And so I think that for me, it's DJ Lagway and himself, but also I look at Billy Napier versus Blake Baker. I mean, they've had some fun matchups going back to when Blake Baker was at Missouri, when Billy Napier was in his first 2 years at Florida. There were really fun matchups. Billy found success against Blake Baker and by success, I mean that he can reliably put up 24-30. I think in every matchup that they've played, he's done that, which I know isn't a lot of points, but when you got a defense that you can trust, that's it. And I look forward to LSU. I'm picking LSU.
If LSU can keep Nussmeier upright, I think the Tigers will have a day. I love a play to the under as well because I think both defenses probably have a pretty stout performance. We got to wrap this thing up. For Brandon Olsen, I'm Matt Moscona. Locked on Gators, locked on LSU. Thanks for making this your first listen at your team every day.